Well, folks, it is the day after the national election. And so I don't need to tell you, everybody already knows Donald J. Trump won again. As of today, Donald J. Trump has been elected the 47th President of the United States. And so I'm sitting out here on my front porch waiting on my shit-lib buddy. He's a good friend of mine, and I've decided that no matter how many times he tries to bring up politics and fish at me, troll me to get him to debate politics with him, I always shut him down and change the subject. And I think I've done pretty good so far. But he's coming by here in a little bit, so I'm going to record until he gets here. But it just makes me reflect. We've been through a lot as progressive voters or as disenfranchised former leftists that really don't relate with the current left anymore. And my buddy is one of those guys that I really looked up to in terms of his punk rock political ideals, but the more and more he seemed to be swayed by the establishment talking points of the media, it was really depressing. Oh, hey, it's noon. Well, it's noon on Wednesday. This is what it sounds like in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Wednesdays at noon. So we're just going to take a minute. That's the midday siren. So when you live in a tornado alley, that's the Wayland. That's the brand name. Every Wednesday at noon, the tornado sirens go off. Make sure they're working. My mother-in-law was in town from Brazil recently. She didn't know what it was. She thought it was serious when it was going off. She was wondering what that was. But second to last night that she was here in town, she got to hear one at 4 a.m. and find out what a real one is like. So that's what the tornado sirens sound like, folks. But as I was saying, just because we got a new president doesn't mean things are changing. It's still going to be business as usual. Your health care plans still aren't going to work when they say they're going to work, and you show up at the dermatologist for your appointment that you've had for multiple months for something that hurts, and they're going to deny you, just as happened to me. Just because there's a new president again doesn't mean things are going to change right away. But like I was saying with my son this morning, for me it's a bit of bittersweetness. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not pro-Trump, but I sure am anti-establishment. So while it doesn't do me any joy to celebrate his victory, except that I really celebrate their loss. It really is sweet to see them lose, because we're not talking about, as they say, democracy on the ballot. Democracy lost a long time ago when they started assassinating presidents and rigging elections long before this. But the one that stood out to me, of course, was the 2016 Democratic primary. And so much, I think, of what took the Trump voter bloc to the next level were former Bernie revolutionaries. When he asked in 2016, are we ready for a revolution, political revolution? We said yes. We screamed hell yeah, and we meant it. So now I think there's a lot of people who, well, like myself and like Savvy Savs, Jimmy Dore, leftist, don't find ourselves supporting Trump, but we can understand it. We can understand why people would, considering the way the establishment Democrats burned us with Bernie. And Bernie went along with it. It'd been different if he had, kind of like RFK Jr. did, stood up to the Democrats, and Tulsi Gabbard did, and stood up to the Democrats and said, what y'all are doing is wrong. You're just perpetuating war. But he didn't. He stood with the establishment Democrats who he had been warning us about all up to that point in 2016. So to see this happen now is kind of sweet. It's a bit of sweet revenge, but because you know that the masses of Americans aren't down with the bullshit and the lies and the perpetual gaslighting that the Democratic Party establishment does to the working class people. If they decided to be on the side of the working class, they would have decided that long ago. And you saw that as all the different unions were supporting Trump. So everything's coming out to be, on the working class, and we shall see how this goes moving forward. He's already been the target of 2 assassination attempts before even being reelected. So they've already come out and said that he would be a target if he were to stop the war in Ukraine. So they're telling you, watch and listen, pay attention. They'll tell you outright what they're going to do and what they want to do. In other news, there were airstrikes. They did kill some 16 Palestinians again, I think just last night or night before, that we know of, in other airstrikes in Gaza. The military-industrial complex who runs our country, they didn't sleep while all this election was going on. All this was going on, but they were still hard at work doing what they do best and do what they're meant to do. So as we move forward, and as I get into doing more news shows and talking political stuff, because the last Trump administration is when I kind of trailed off doing 3 points and talking about the news, because it was really hard to talk about the news when everybody was only talking about Trump. And if you opened up the news feeds, that's all there was in terms of headlines. So yes, the establishment media got their sweetheart back, and they'll be happy because their ratings will go up again, because they'll be talking about Trump all the time, and that's sensationalism. It works out well for them. But for independent journalists, it's also a win because censorship was real under the Biden-Harris administration, and it was going to be. It's something that all of our YouTube news guys, news people that we like, were worried about, is that they really face big time censorship under another 4 years of Harris-Biden, or establishment Democrats. So we can take a bit of a breath. Like, we know that Trump supports independent voices and free speech. That's good, First Amendment. And for those of us that want to do this type of political talking and news comment, video content, it's really just about finding the groove of what style to do it in. And I've tried doing the little shorts and the skate shorts, and those are okay, but I don't think that YouTube doesn't really want people talking about the news and real issues through that format. They'd rather see a little quick, like the skate things. Like, in fact, the skate part of the videos, if anytime there was more skate, that got boosted more by YouTube than if I was talking about anything that had any real hashtag. Especially if I hashtagged something like just genocide or free Palestine, anything against this establishment narrative, then it didn't get hardly any views. It got really squelched and squashed in the algorithm. So it'd make more sense to do this kind of longer form stuff, try and get more live viewership. And what I think I'll do is just more of the kind where we have the TV in the background, where I can just kind of scroll through some of the different stories and we'll talk about this stuff. And maybe I can get a couple guests on, or co-hosts, where we can talk about the videos through video conference. But I'm into talking about these real issues because it just seems like every 4 years is when people pay attention to it again. And we know that, and we joke about that. Everybody's aware that they don't really pay attention to politics until every 4 years. But seeing how it affects every day, and now that Trump's back in, what I think is really funny about when Trump is in office is that it makes Americans pay attention more and give a shit more and protest more. So I always thought, it seems a little self-destructive, but I always thought, or a little sabotageal, that it's good to have presidents that people hate or that are bad guys, because it makes the rest of us act like good guys. It makes Americans step up and do the right thing in other ways, and it brings out the best of people in a lot of other ways. And all that just went on snooze. Everybody hit the snooze alarm when Biden got in office. There was no protesting, and it wasn't like police brutality stopped. And I've seen more unmarked police cars this past 4 years than ever before, and I hate it. All right, well, my buddy's here. Like I said, I thought I'd be recording until he got here, and he's here now. So peace out. You've been watching 3 Points.